for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Jonathan Liu, sports writer at The Guardian, and Daily Mail's Ihsan Khan. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the Back Pages as we have them. The Guardian goes big on Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United. They also cover James Maddison's awful injury, plus news of 5 Lionesses being in contention for the Ballon d'Or. The men's Ballon d'Or makes the page of the Times. Scott McTominay, one of the contenders after his brilliant season with Napoli. Also, Liverpool are ready to say goodbye to Darwin Núñez. The Telegraph Sports section reflects that story. He was one of the few Jurgen Klopp buys that didn't work out, they say. Welcome on once again to Jonathan and to Ihsan. Great to see you both. OK, so let's start off with the transfer news and obviously the big story. As this move edges closer, it does feel like a case of when rather than if. Benjamin Sesko to join Manchester United, and on the back of your paper, Jonathan, it says United wrap up 73.3 million Sesko deal to spoil Newcastle's plans. So this one does feel like it. He's landed. To kind of finalise this deal. And when you look at now where United are at with Mbeumo, with Matthias Cunha and Benjamin Sesko, how does that transform things?
Well, it certainly transforms the feel around the club. The United fan base that will have been, I think, totally despondent and possibly, at the end of their tether following the Europa League final last summer, the way the league season ended, will be feeling that most dangerous of footballing substances again, hope, ahead of the new season. And that front line is totally, it's reinvented. Cunha and Mbeumo, you have to assume, will probably play as the 10s in that 3-4-3 system. And Sesko now as that number 9, assuming that deal does go through. What does he bring? Obviously the physical attributes we all know about. He's fast, he's tall, he's extremely mobile, he's young, he's got resale value, he's not going to break the bank in terms of wages, and he's got a good record in the Bundesliga with Leipzig, and before that with Salzburg. Does the fact that he's scored goals for Leipzig mean that he's going to score goals elsewhere? I think that the jury's slightly out on that. I think we saw with Timo Werner, for example, with Christopher Nkunku, that the style of football that Leipzig play and the sort of teams that you come up against in the Bundesliga, it's not automatically transferable to the Premier League. You look at how Højlund's figures dropped off when he came to the Premier League. You look at other big number 9s who have come from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, and it's not a done deal. For every Haaland, there's a full crew. So what I would say is that for Sesko, the ceiling is quite high. I mean, he's obviously been on the radar for a lot of Premier League teams, a lot of really good Premier League teams for some years now. The fact that nobody has taken a gamble on him yet at this kind of money, and United have, suggests that it is a gamble of sorts. So it's one that, if it does pay off, it's obviously huge for them. United fans will be extremely, extremely gratified. I think that they've managed to beat off the competition of Newcastle. Whether he's going to be a guaranteed success, I think that's the sort of thing that only time's going to tell.
Yeah, if we look at the back page of the Times sports section with the headline, United take spending past £200 million. It's a piece from friend of the show, Charlotte Dunker. And talking about the numbers here, we're talking about whether it pays off, Jonathan, but Ihsan, to you, £66.3 million is the initial fee, 7.4 million is the add-ons potentially, is what they're reporting. Does that feel like, a fair price for a young but unproven player in the Premier League, at least? And it feels, in terms of United's overall spending, now that would take it up to around £214 million.
I think overall it's a good piece of business. You only have to look at last summer and even this window in terms of Arsenal. Sesko was right up there as Arsenal's main priority for their striker targets, and one of the main factors as to why they've not gone for Sesko and put their eggs in the basket of Victor Gyökeres was just how hard it was to deal with RB Leipzig on this deal because RB Leipzig last summer extended Sesko's contract to 2029. They had all the bargaining power and they didn't need to sell him, which made any deal such a difficult prospect. So the fact that Man United have been able to get in there and obviously ward off Newcastle, but also find a way to get this done, I think it's a good piece of business overall. And you only have to look at the intricacies of the deal too, like the extensive add-ons and the fact that both clubs have even agreed to have a friendly at some point too. So it definitely will have been a complex deal, but one that Man United have got over the line, have got done. And I know other teams have obviously looked at him and not signed him, but the fact that Man United, have beaten other teams to this, it's a good sign.
What does it mean for the future of Rasmus Højlund, Jonathan, and also potentially, I know it's not his main position, but Alejandro Garnacho in terms of just the shifting of those forward positions?
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that if United want to do any more business this window, they will need to shift players like Garnacho, and obviously the ones that we know of like Sancho and Anthony. In terms of Højlund, I would like to see him stay and fight for his place. I mean, I know we talked about him. We talked about him last week as his form in pre-season. Scoring one off his shin and one off his shoulder. Obviously the kind of goals that weren't going in for him last season. But I would like to see him stay and fight for his place. Sesko is no like we said, he's no guarantee to find his feet immediately. Højlund, he's clearly a competent striker. He is confident of earning his place and competing on equal terms with him. And I think if he does go, and Newcastle are looking for a striker in this window, it does feel like one of those where it could be he could get more chances than he thinks, especially if there are injuries, especially if there are opportunities for him in other competitions. Højlund, he's not worked. I think it's fair to say he's not adapted to the Premier League. I think it was 4 goals in 32 games last season. But if he wants to stay, and if he does have that competition, if he's not, I guess, wedded to playing every single game and leading the line at an age where he probably wasn't ready to do so, I think you could actually see him develop in a way that he maybe hasn't done so far.
If we look in the inside pages of the Telegraph Sports section, Ihsan, they say that more signings are planned to follow this £214 million spree. And it always seemed the way that, yes, of course, they can sell more players, but it seemed like it might be the 9 or the 6. Well, the 9 is almost there. And in terms of the 6, Carlos Baleba from Brighton, do they head there next? Or Donnarumma as a goalkeeper? What do you think?
Well, I think if they're going in this same vein, then yes, they've now arguably completed the front line if this deal with Sesko is done, which will be done. So the next bits now are to look at, as you say, the midfield and the goalkeeping area. And if them areas get done too, United are looking at like a totally different prospect to last season. You only have to look at the recent interview Amorim gave to the written press just the other week, where he speaks about wanting to be in charge of United for the next decade or so, and all this optimism he has for the team. It's all just words for now, but now he's actually got players there to show for that potential improvement. So in terms of mood and for the fans going into this new season, it's a real boost, and now there's these other areas to address too.
Obviously, this is just the start of things. It appears, at least transfer-wise, turning around for Manchester United. Amorim now able to really form the squad in the image that he wants. Also in the Telegraph, Liverpool. And in contrast, for them, the backing has been there. Arne Slot really now making the most of a significant budget. But also, it's not just the spend, it's the return, Jonathan. And what do you make of the value they've got from Darwin Núñez's departure to Al Hilal?
Yeah, I mean, I believe Liverpool will bank a loss on that. I mean, I think the figure appears to be somewhere in the 40-45 million pound region in terms of a transfer fee, depending on what source you consult. And that is quite a significant hit. And yet, the fact that Liverpool would almost be grateful to get that sort of money for Darwin does suggest what an underwhelming buy he's been. I think he was bought in the same summer that City signed Haaland, and I think a lot of hope was invested in him that he would be Liverpool's Haaland. And Liverpool don't play the same way. They didn't need that sort of player in the way that City ended up relying on Haaland. It is the numbers don't lie, really. He has been an underwhelming purchase at Liverpool, but I think he goes with a lot of goodwill from fans. He's like someone like Divock Origi, who again didn't perform well in terms of base numbers, but provided so many memorable moments, who carried himself, who conducted himself, I think, in a very admirable way, despite not getting the opportunities that he would have liked. I think he does go with a lot of goodwill. And in terms of where it leaves that Liverpool front line, it does leave them, I think, a little bit short. And it's been a quite an extraordinary summer of change and turmoil and upheaval in that Liverpool front line. In that you may well see 3 or 4 players coming in, or 3 or 4 players going. Diaz is gone, Nunez is gone. Obviously, Diogo Jota has very tragically gone, and so that is a huge upheaval and a huge period of adaptation that front line needs to go through. And I do think it leaves them slightly short, because there's no way Salah is going to be able to carry the workload that he did last season, with AFCON coming up this summer. That puts a huge amount of onus on like the likes of Nketiah and Gakpo. So I think it does leave them a little bit short in that area, and whether they now turn their focus towards Isak, I think is going to be one of the consuming storylines between now and the rest of the window.
Yeah, absolutely. 25 days to go, and plenty of stories still to be told. Okay, gents, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories making the morning's newspapers, including this in the Telegraph. Chelsea's interest in Alejandro Garnacho is discussed, along with that ACL injury to Tottenham Hotspur's James Maddison. Stay with us. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to The Guardian's Jonathan Yu and the Daily Mail's Ihsan Khan. OK, it is the worst time to get a significant injury, and we've had 2 of them basically in the same day, with Levi Cole undergoing surgery on an ACL, and also James Maddison suffering the similar injury. So ACL, obviously anterior cruciate ligament, it's a knee injury. It's kind of the worst one to get, isn't it, guys? So let's go to the back page of the Times. Maddison may miss season is the headline for Gary Jacobs' piece. And it happened in a friendly against Newcastle in Seoul on Sunday, and he left the pitch on a stretcher after coming on as a substitute in the 75th minute. First of all, Ihsan, I mean, for James Maddison, when it rains, it pours. This guy cannot catch a break. When he has the chance to have a fresh start under a new manager, and then something like this happens, you've got to feel for him first of all.
Absolutely, it's the same knee as well that he injured towards the end of last season as well. So yes, it's awful, but it goes back to the broader point of how congested these schedules are for footballers. It's ridiculous, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon, no matter how many injuries get accumulated, it seems. And yeah, on a broader point, it's a second injury for him, but in terms of long-term health and playing prospects, it'll arguably significantly hamper that too. So it's a worrying sign. And it goes back to what Rodri said last season, when just days before he had that horrific knee injury, he was warning about how players could go on strike and how bad the workload is on players. And it's a trend that will continue, as we can see with pre-season tours abroad. They're all very lucrative in terms of sponsorship, in terms of commercial. So yeah, there's no end in sight, unfortunately, in terms of overloading injuries.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the papers are carrying this story. Back page of The Sun, Maddison KO woe in Tom Barkley's piece. And also, I think it's worth sort of pointing out here, I mean, this is a critical phase in James Maddison's career, isn't it? With both Thomas Frank and Thomas Tuchel and the World Cup coming up in less than 12 months' time, Jonathan. I mean, this timing feels just really quite cruel, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think he would have been really pivotal to Spurs this season under Thomas Frank, given how inexperienced they are, given how thin they still look in that area of the pitch. I think he would have become a key player, not just on the pitch, but as a leader in terms of setting standards and setting culture. It does leave Spurs quite. They lost 4-0 to Bayern Munich in a friendly tonight, and they. Like to be blunt, they don't look very good. They look like a really kind of a random assortment of talents that somehow managed to kind of fluke their way to a European trophy last season and are going to get badly exposed unless they hit the ground running this season. It puts a huge amount of pressure on guys like Bentancur and Papi Matar and Dejan Kulusevski and Lucas Bergvall in the centre of the pitch. So yeah, and for Maddison himself, I think. In a World Cup year, it's realistically going to put him out of that tournament, and you wonder whether we're ever going to see the best of James Maddison on a big stage. Whether it be a Champions League campaign or a major international tournament, because we haven't really seen him kind of elevated to that level yet, and it looks like at this stage we might never.
Jonathan, just to stay with you on this, because it's not just Maddison. I mentioned as well Levi Cole, and he's had surgery after suffering an injury in training this week, but he's that bit younger. I wonder, just to Ehsan's earlier point about the calendar and just simply the workload that these players, especially at the big clubs, with barely any summer breaks, a player like a Cole Palmer this time around, for example, or Colwell, how much do you think this is going to become more of a trend that actually players who peak earlier because they're fielded earlier in their careers also suffer these injuries earlier? Do you think we're going to see ultimately players having shorter careers because of this situation?
This makes me so mad because people like football will move on, right? Football will forget about Levi Colwill for the next 8-10 months or however long it is. Chelsea might sign someone else. They look quite short in defence. They might just sign someone else in defence. England will move on. And Colwill will be the collateral damage for a calendar. I think we can all agree it's just totally irrational. The fact that you play a long season, you play international tournaments, you play pre-season friendlies, and all of that, and then you add in the Club World Cup in the height of an American summer, and you expect players not to go down. Or frankly, I think the game doesn't really care. I think the game has such an abundance of players coming through. It's got such an abundance of money and greed that the human being Levi Colwill is basically collateral damage. It doesn't really matter to football that he's now going to miss 8 to 10 months of his career, of his development, of his ambition. That he's probably going to miss an international tournament because there's always someone else who can come in, and that is where we are with football. It's greed, and it's essentially a dehumanization process where players are really just kind of they're units of labour who can just be brought in and sweated and replaced as and when.
And of course, it's a 48-team World Cup as well at the end of this new season. Look, we know that Chelsea have got some of the best medical staff out there. I'm sure that they will take as best care of him as they can. Ihsan, I just sort of wonder, where does this? I mean, as Jonathan said, like we're already so congested anyway. Where does this reach breaking point, or have we passed that? What will it take for, if anything, football to go in reverse from this, or will it just not?
Yeah, it's only going to go in one direction. I see this going in the direction of only if the players ever went on strike, which again is so inconceivable because, as Jonathan says, because there's so many players out there that have this dream of playing at the top level, all players in some way are replaceable. So yes, it's just going to continue in this direction. Players are going to get injured. Their livelihoods in terms of long-term futures are going to be damaged, and the authorities at the end of the day don't really care at the end of the day because it's a money business. The bottom line is sponsorship, commercial, and the figures involved. So I see, regardless of how many injuries occur, I just can't see how this ends at all.
Let's move on to cheerier topics, shall we? Let's get back to Jonathan's paper and the Ballon d'Or and the women's awards list. And you're carrying this Tom Gary's piece, Jonathan. There's a fair chance of plenty of Lionesses picking up different awards here, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if from an England point of view, you just have to hope they don't split the vote. I think Arsenal have 7. Is it 7 players on
That's right.
on the list from
7. Yep.
that Champions League winning side? I think we love to argue about these lists and quibble about them. I think the major trend that it does show that this shortlist is the way the balance of power has shifted from North America towards Europe. The vast majority of the players on the shortlist either coming from the major European leagues, from major European countries. I think there's maybe a couple from the US women's national team and just a handful from the NWSL, and that would have been frankly unthinkable even 5 or 6 years ago. So I think it just shows that how the gravity of the women's game has shifted towards the clubs like Barcelona and Arsenal and Chelsea and PSG, who I think have the facilities and have the structure to attract so much better talent from all over the world these days. And I think this is a seismic moment in the game in that respect.
Back page of the Times has a picture of Scott McTominay, of course, won Serie A with Napoli, MVP in Serie A as well. Ihsan, listen, I mean, I think, you're a dreamer if you're thinking he might actually win the Ballon d'Or, but what are the sort of bits you have to tick off realistically if you are going to win it? Because, in terms of him exceeding expectations where, his stock was valued so lowly by Manchester United, they shipped him out, and look what he's gone and done.
I think fair play to him. Last year, United sold him for about £25 million and then brought in Manuel Ugarte for an extra, I think, 15-20 million on top of that. And in some ways, he was a bit of a scapegoat, McTominay at Man United. And look what he's gone and done, gone to Napoli and made a name for himself, as you say, MVP of the Serie A League last season, and really kicked on and not only proved people wrong, but proved what a good player is. And in some ways, more broadly, it just shows you how toxic Man United, the atmosphere has been in recent times. And all it took for McTominay was to get out of that, to be able to showcase his talents abroad. So I think on a wider perspective, it shows a lot of what it's been like at Manchester United. And with the Ballon d'Or list, it's a 30-man list. Of course, McTominay is not going to win it, but if it's such a wide list, why not have a name such as Scott McTominay on there? I think it's a nice addition and fair play to him.
It's a great story, isn't it? We've got about 30 seconds, guys. Obviously, Championship football kicks off this weekend, live on Sky on a Friday night. Listen, I just wanted from you both, briefly, tips for who's going to go up. I want 1 or 2 names from you both, please. Jonathan first.
A lot of people tipping it. I'd go Sheffield United. I guess Sheffield United and Leicester, I think, and Millwall is a kind of dark horse. I think Millwall have signed pretty well this summer.
Oh, interesting. Didn't go for Ipswich. What do you think, Ihsan?
I think Ipswich. I think with Kieran McKenna, he's shown his credentials in the past. I think he'll do them good, and they'll go up. And I see Leicester going up too, and then Sheffield United go a shout too. But
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate your company, your insights. We'll speak to you again very, very soon indeed. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see Backpages tonight, hour. Also available as a podcast. Just download Backpages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We're back tomorrow with Martin and David.